Hello everyone, my name is Dellair Youssef and this is Revision Soziokultur podcast. One day a friend of mine sent me a link and told me to apply for this job. It looks like it fits you. I took a look and I said, okay, this looks interesting. Let's apply. I did. And then I had an interview with 3 nice people. I made some of my so-called stupid jokes, but thankfully they liked them and gave me the job. This job is, and I'm reading from their website, looking to commission a digital artist for a storytelling commission between April and December 2022 to create a 6-part multimedia diaries. This commission is open to artists globally. You must be bilingual, German-English. So, I have to do what they call multimedia diaries on the topic of socioculture in Germany by working with 2 other artists, an electronic musician, Benjamin Berry, and a comic artist, Azam Mazoumzadeh. And I have the freedom to select the multimedia form I want to profile 14 different projects. I decided to make 6 short videos, one for each part of this diary, and a podcast, which is the one we are listening to. In this podcast, I will host different projects that interact with the concept of socioculture. I wanted to understand this thing and what it means, honestly, and from the beginning. One of the main reasons that made me apply to this job was to see the world with different eyes, to get out of my comfort zone and try to talk to others, to other artists who live and work out of my circle. First, if you introduce yourself and why I'm talking to both of you.
So my name is Rainer. I'm the founder of the festival and the director of the festival. And my university degree I have in chemistry, but I'm working in the fields of art.
My name is Volker Doberstein. I'm working for the festival and I'm especially in responsibility, of course, with Rainer for that green project.
Can you also tell me a bit about the project, the Enjoy Jazz project? It's super old. It's 23 years old, right? And how did it start? How many people working there? How's the environment? Just give me kind of a feedback to understand the whole project.
So I founded the festival in 1999. I had the idea for a long time to have my own jazz festival, as I wanted to have a festival where I live and shaped as I like it. And so I shaped it as I like it. What do I like? I like that the audience can focus on one project a day and that this project has no time restriction, no restriction in any case, for the freedom of art. So I didn't want it to have a weekend festival with 30 parallel shows and you pop in, you don't like the music, after 5 minutes you went out, because art mostly sometimes needs more time. So I wanted to have one concert a day and in my region. So I got funding in 1999. I was able to start with the festival and it was successful and I could expand very fast from the city of Heidelberg, where I founded it, to the city of Mannheim, which is next door, 15 kilometers only. And then some years later to the city of Ludwigshafen, which is on the other side of the River Rhine. And then it occurred that the situation as it is still now, that the festival is for 6-7 weeks in October and November in 3 main cities, and we have around 30 different venues, and we only have one artist on one stage per evening. If we have 2 concerts at the same evening, it's 2 different stages, 2 different cities, so that you stay at the concert. As I said already, for me, the two most important things is the artistic freedom of the artist, and that the audience can focus on this artistic project of that evening, and it's not leaving after 5 minutes because next door is another concert. So that's more or less, and it's international, of course, and the festival combines different levels of aesthetics, let's say. It's the artistic aesthetics, of course, and it's the political aesthetics also, and social aesthetics also. So we're working also with symposiums on different intersectionality, for example. We did a symposium last year, or the relation between the US and the Europe in case of arts, especially in case of jazz. We produce also projects, and we have readings, so we have talks. So we dig very deep into the topic. My idea from the beginning was to show and to showcase the depth of the art form jazz on all different levels, on other art forms, on the society, in jazz itself, of course, because I think it's the most important, most beautiful art form in music of the last 100 years. But I think it's more than just having a jazz trio on stage. Jazz means more. And as a tool, the civil rights movement, for example, and everything we can talk about, improvisation and what society can learn from improvising artists and all that. So when we try to reflect that with our program, so we have a lot of side programs. And over the years, the festival was in the first year connected to a cultural center, a socio-cultural center in Heidelberg, the Kulturschaffende. And then after a few years, it became independent, and now it's an independent company with partners and supporters. And over the years, we collected some sponsors here in the region. The first one was SAP. Now the main sponsor is SAS and BASF. Is the second one. And we have private supporters. And we have a team in the team we are 9 people. And we work all year long. We have our own office space where we are now, which is also a small venue where we can promote small concerts like we did last Sunday, a solo piano concert. We have a piano here, which is nice. And it's the old piano of Michael Volny. He gave it to us when he moved. And he could only take one of his 2 pianos. And he said, "Can you show one of my pianos?" I said, "Yes, of course." So that's nice. And yeah, that's what we do. And we present on the music level, we present, of course, jazz and all related art forms, music art forms to jazz, like hip hop, electronic music, contemporary music. So whenever I think, I'm the artistic director also, so whenever I think what you do as an artist has a connection to jazz, then, and it's quality and relevant, then we present it. So that's why the subtitle of the festival is Festival for Jazz and More.
Okay, but what you were saying, like, is like you became bigger with the years, right?
Right, yeah. So we started with 7 concerts the first year, and now we have 6 weeks, 70 events, different
Okay.
events.
But how does that affect your work? Is it like putting a lot of pressure on you? How do you deal with that much work?
Yeah, I mean, pressure, not in a dramatic sense. It's like the pressure you have when you have a target, when you work. We're a team of 9 people, as I said, and this team is working all year. So they're all engaged here. It's their job, their main job. So we come in the morning, we go in the evening, sometimes we stay later and have a glass of rosé. So it's, yeah, why not? Or something else.
I mean, it's fun, if you like it and if you like doing what you like and you created that, it's probably fun to stay and work, right? Most of the time.
Exactly, and it's also a challenge because when something is fun you're working on, then you cannot feel your limits anymore. So sometimes you have, but you know better than others, I guess. Yeah, but sometimes when there's a special question we have to solve or we have a special project we're working on, of course, sometimes it can be pressure, but the festival is so big now, that is the biggest jazz festival in Germany, the Spiegel and the FA Fonds Zeitung wrote that, then it's a side of that. Of course, we have to work on that, but it's not putting the pressure on it. So that is so big. No. It's fun. We're working with with huge desire on all these things. And as I said, we try to intervene different levels of aesthetics. I would name it like that.
Okay. But you said you like from Heidelberg, right?
The festival office is in Heidelberg, yeah.
And you are from the Heidelberg, no?
I'm from Mannheim, but
Okay.
office is in Heidelberg.
Okay, and that would be my question. What does this work mean to this like a local, how to say, local community? You know, like you work basically, as I understood, like in 3 different cities that are like in one region. And how does your work affect that region? Do you feel it? Do you feel like you change something in the area?
We are doing this. It's hard to judge. The outside has to talk about that. But from the inner view, yes, we can say we think we have changed and influenced a lot of things. What we do, we have a lot of cooperations within the region, within the different cities. We do cooperate with cultural institutions, big ones like the National Theatre or the arts, Kunsthalle, Arts Hall, Museum. But we also cooperate with small associations in the cultural field or whatsoever. So we have the network of corporations we're having in the region. No one else has a network like that. So we almost cooperate with all we can. And when someone is asking us, we always say yes, because we think it has to be embedded in the activities here.
No, but why? I mean, like after becoming international and that big, and like why you're still working with the local communities?
I think it would not make sense because it's space related what we're doing. So it's not in the internet. So a digital festival would not be space related, but we're related to that region. And the reason why I founded the festival is because I live here and I wanted to have it here. I didn't want to travel to a festival. I wanted to have it here where I live, because I think that a festival like that, when it's made in a different way, then it has a meaning to the society here and to the local community. And in all my work, I'm also working as an advisor for the mayor of the city of Mannheim on international level. I think the bridge between the local and the international is super important. It's for both levels, it's very, very important. But where you live, in the city where you live, and the majority of people, as you know, live in cities now, so an urban environment, it's super important that things that are happening there are connected to this space, as this is part of the city, the local and the regional development culture. And of course, we have there's a huge effect, I guess, and a huge influence into the region, but also the region influences us, of course. And I could not imagine doing that and have no connection to the local community. It would not make sense. I mean, jazz is a community arts form. It's not from outer space, you know. It was developed for the communities, from the communities and for the communities. It's internationalized now, of course, like everything is internationalized. But the connection to the community is very, very, very important. Also, when international artists come here, so we have a masterclass program, for example, because all these famous musicians, they come here. So when they're here already, they can teach, right? Because normally a school could not afford to invite Brad Meadow for a teaching lesson. It's impossible. But when someone like him is already playing here, why not giving a lesson the next day? Makes total sense.
Okay. Yeah, that's like inspiring actually and nice. I know different experiences like in different places in the world, and like the moment they want to go international, they don't care about, I don't know, where they come from, you know. That's why I'm asking my question, because I'm like, I think this is important for like small communities, small cities. You don't always need to go to Berlin or like to Hamburg to present your music, you know.
Exactly, absolutely. Right, yes.
So and this is like you were mentioning now and before on the phone when you talked to Volker, he was like saying and you just said that you work with like all the centers that socio-cultural centers, and this is one of the main reasons that I'm doing this. I want to understand what socio-culture is. So how you both define socioculture?
It's a language, a semantic that was introduced, I guess, in the 70s, when it was a social democratic idea, by the way. And I'm not a historian, but I think it was that was the path. And that was the time when there was the idea that you cannot look at things like art or culture disconnected from other levels of society, like the social issue, the economic issue, religion, ethnics, and all that, economics also. And then it was there was this concept to connect all this and to also have centers for that. So that's why in the early sociocultural centers you would find like all these third world initiatives, it was called at the time. Still some still of these initiatives have this name. And so, it was the idea to reconnect culture and the arts as if you look at an opera house in a traditional way, I'm not judging about another art form, but mostly that's why no one wants to see operas anymore, right? It's totally disconnected to the daily life of people. That's the opposite of social culture. It's something else. It was produced for elites, and now everyone has to go to see operas, but no one wants to see them, of course. There's this line, The Smiths, a very famous UK pop band, where Morrissey was the singer, and he turned out to be a fascist, but so we don't like him anymore. But this line, it's very interesting. It says, because the music that they constantly play, it says nothing to me about my life. There's the line that says, kill the DJ, and then it explains why the DJ should be killed. It says, because the music that they constantly play, it says nothing to me about my life. And of course, if art is disconnected to your experience, to your environment, to your way of looking at things, then it's of course. I'm not saying art has to always reflect. Of course, art has to be in a kind of disconnected. But you know what I mean. And we have to differ between art and culture, of course.
Yeah, this is like bringing like some example to my head. I don't remember. I read it recently from someone was saying like people are like not attending opera, most of the people, because it required like some lifestyle. You have to have this fancy wine and like fancy clothing and like go there, but people don't do that. And you are like doing the opposite, and you just like or like, how to say it, including more people in what you do.
No, that's the idea, of course, because we do this for the people, right? So, and we have not for one group, for everyone. We try to get everyone, of course. Of course, we understand that there are a lot of barriers for some groups not to go to a concert. We totally understand, but we try to work on that, of course. And by the way, the sociocultural center or socioculture, between you and me, I always do not, I never understood really the concept behind it, very honest. Although I just try to explain it to you. But I can kind of explain, but as I cannot look on culture in a different way than that. I have no idea why, you know what I mean? Why you have that's the concept. But there are some, as we are in a bureaucracy in Germany, of course. For example, if you can only be a socio-cultural center by definition if you are independent. So if this is owned by the city, then you cannot be a socio-cultural center. So that's one part of the definition. It has to be independent from administration, from municipality.
Yeah, and that's how you got the fund, because you considered as a social culture project, right?
Yes, because we are non-profit. We're a non-profit organization.
Yeah, and how this fund helps you to work? What does it do?
So now we come to the idea we had. As I am also working, as I said, I'm vice mayor of the city of Mannheim, the international youth. And I'm involved for many years in the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, and all these international discussions we're having for decades now. And so I'm mostly always very well informed what the world is discussing on these levels. And for a long time, I thought, in regards of the climate change issue or climate disaster issue and the SDGs, we have to contribute with our festival also. So everyone has to contribute. So also we as our festival. And then for a while, I formulated the project that we have to work on a green festival concept, whatever that means. And then, of course, when you do a festival, as you said like that, you need a lot of capacities and resources. So if you want to then add a project, huge project, you need funding for it to get more resources, to engage someone who's working on that. And now we got this little fund from the Fonds Soziokultur, and now we can work very, very serious on the Green Festival issue.
Tell me a bit about this Green Festival.
Yeah, so since the discussion with the climate disaster, with all the COP conferences and the Greens becoming member of the government, and the need for it, and the need especially that we have to do something on that, means that everyone has to do it. Every theater, every museum, every company, every household, every individual, of course. And at the same time, there were a lot of initiatives were funded. Music declares, what's the name? Music declares, what's the name? So some initiatives were funded, the Green Touring Initiative, and some big names in the music industry business, they funded initiatives, associations to work on the climate disaster issue. And for a while we had that plan, and I think that some of these discussions, they go into the wrong direction. For example, in Scandinavia, I think in Norway, or it might be in Finland, I forgot, there is a concert hall. They now refuse engaging artists who fly to them. So, okay. I don't think that this is the right decision, but that's what their concept. And I'm more interested in seeing the whole picture. So having the holistic view. Green. Do we only look at carbon, or do we also look at water, other things? And when we now say green, mostly we're looking at carbon. Of course, this is you can do that, but in Scandinavia, for example, that leads to that the Green Party in Scandinavia is now going back to nuclear power. Because if you only look on carbon print or GHG, greenhouse gases, then nuclear power is the best. But if you look at other things, like radioactivity, for example, then maybe it's not the best. So, and we would like to have a deeper view into the issue of Green Festival, and would like to have a concept that includes artists who fly to us because they live in Mexico. They cannot come here without flying. It's impossible. And I don't want to exclude artists now at that level only because we all focus on carbon. And so that's why I think we should have a deeper look into the question, how can we be sustainable? How can we contribute to the climate disaster discussion? How can we contribute to get the world back in shape so that our children will be able to live on Earth?
You're talking now about I don't know, carbon, green things. We talked about the place, the space, but we didn't talk about people. So how do you include people, artists from different classes, different backgrounds? We just mentioned that opera is for a certain class of people, and this you are open for more people. How do you do that? How do you include I don't know, people from the Middle East or people from Mexico? You just mentioned.
No, I guess maybe you missed that. The core was when I was talking about it. The core, the center is the people. That's what I said. The festival is made for the people, and that's why it's space related what we're doing, because the people are here. They're not. Yeah, and yes, and I also said so I don't want to play opera or something. Opera without singing would be great. So, but no, without kidding. I mean, in an ordinary life, the life of my brother, my mother, they would not listen to jazz, right? My brother is listening to jazz, but so I do not expect that everyone, 100% of the population of the region is interested in jazz. But what we did from the very beginning, because I think, again, also here, it's interesting to have a deeper view into the art form jazz, like what was the contribution to the civil rights movement, what is the contribution as a community art form, and so on, what was the influence to other art forms like electronic music, hip hop, but also classical music. Listen to some Shostakovich compositions. It's very jazz-like, and other related things. So that's why from the very beginning I knew I would like to show a really broader definition of jazz, and I wanted to have it as a joy. That's why the name is Enjoy Jazz. Because in the late 90s, jazz was not really hipster. It was like you would have been a very boring person if you would have announced I'm a jazz fan, you know. and so then first we present totally different art forms. That means we reach out to different ages of people, like very young people, under 18, people between 20 and 30, but also older traditional jazz fans. So that's the first thing we do, reach out to more people. And then different levels of income. Of course, we must not close our eyes. Most of these art forms we're presenting are for a special milieu, as the sociologists would say. But as we have different art forms representing, we have also different venues, like small galleries or a small techno club or a former military space up to the National Theatre. And that means also we have different levels of tickets. Sometimes we have events, the entrance fee is €5. And of course, a €5 ticketed event is more accessible to other people than a €50 event. So we have different art forms, we have different ticket prices, and we have different marketing ideas. And for example, you as a student you can buy a festival pass, then valuable for 10 concerts. And that means you pay €5 per concert if you would buy the 10 tickets. So it would be like €500. So we try to, and if someone comes to us and say, for example, you might know Mashro Leila, right? From Lebanon. Yeah, so we had them 2 times at the festival. And the first time they played, we had a lot of Syrian refugees in town. And then we were in contact, of course, with the organizers of the spaces where they lived. And we said, okay, just tell everyone is invited. If they cannot afford a ticket, just let us know. Then we find a way. And so we had, like, I don't know, 1,000 people coming to the show, and maybe at least half of them were of Arabic reason, because we have so many Arabic people in town. And so we try to get in contact with our audience and try to understand what their needs are and try to match that with our needs, because we also have needs, because we would like to present an art form. And as I said, very important for us is artistic freedom. So I'm not saying to artists what they should do on stage. I don't tell them how long they should play on stage. I don't tell them what they do. Very often they ask me, do you want to have 2 sets or 1 set? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's like the whole thing, it reminds me of like, I grew up in Damascus, and this reminds me of like a jazz festival was like founded in Damascus in the 2000s. I don't know, like 2005 until 2010 or something. And there was like it changed the whole scene in the city, you know? they opened the old castle and they brought like this famous jazz musician and also like local alternative jazz players, and they're like, and it was like for free, so like public. And every day, every concert would be like 5,000 people attending, you know. And that's how it changed the whole area, you know. So like while I'm talking to you, I'm imagining that place, and I'm thinking like, is it like any similar, you know, like how you change like the whole, like my whole generation changed and because of that somehow, you know. And also it's like met new musicians that wanted to play there, and then like it gave them a stage, you know.
Exactly. So that's why. So if you are a local musician, not automatically you can play at our festival. But if you're an international musician, not automatically you can play at the festival. So my decision is always artistically. When I think this is, I would like to present this piece of work, then I present it. But of course, I mean, we're in connection with all the musicians here. For example, with the Oriental Music Academy in Mannheim, this is a wonderful example how things could work out if a lot of different entities work together. I don't know whether you've heard about the it's called Oriental Music Academy in Mannheim. So with them, we were the first one working with them. So they are one of our main partners. And of course, when we present a project of them, of course, then the migrant community in Mannheim gets aware of us because it's the music they're connected to, right? That's what I said, because the music that they constantly play says nothing to me about my life. That's why I like this quote from this song. And of course, if you're from Syria and living in Mannheim, or you're from Turkey living in Mannheim, but never ever music or something related to what you know from when you lived in Turkey or Syria is played in your environment, it's maybe difficult to connect with you if you're not as international as you are. And the Turkish community in Mannheim, for example, is very conservative, as we can all understand and imagine. And so, but I can reach out to them when we bring Turkish musicians here and do special projects with the Oriental Music Academy, for example. But again, exactly. And so it's also important to if you're an international festival, that you are really international, not only focused on one level of internationality. And I mean, it is difficult, of course, as we are also interested in bringing, let's say, progressive art form on stage, because we think that in the times we're living, it's important to have progressive art on stage, because that fosters change and thinking and creativity. That's what I think.
Okay, so this make me think about like one question. You know, talking about all of this, and like you present yourself at the present in a way, yeah. And some, I don't know, like the way you are, the everything you've been talking about, but also you like you connected like something to the past, how jazz was created and how it's like for the community. And also you looking like always like for the future, you plan for the future and everything. And it's like how you connect like all this like times different together, you know. Do you think about like this like timeline, past, present, future, you're planning?
So this is super important what you're just saying. We that's our mindset. What you just explained, and but we're not thinking in these categories. It's automatically there. So when we think about jazz, of course we work with Archie Shepp, who's in his 80s now. I'm not saying he's too old. Come on with his old stuff. We're not interested. No, I mean he was one of the major players in the civil rights movement. He knew Malcolm X. He played with all the big names, with John Coltrane. Of course, he's super important, and he's an intellectual, by the way. But of course, we're also interested. There's a very young band in Heidelberg. They will publish a record. They gave me the record a few weeks ago. They said, "Can you listen to it? And if you like it, can you say something? Can you say a word?" And then we print it on the record. We make a sticker on it. And of course, that's super interesting and important for me to understand what are these young kids doing when they think about jazz? And then there's other things like hip hop or whatsoever. So this is I don't know, what would you say, Volker, when the question how we deal with the different time zones, the past of jazz, the present, and maybe the future.
I think you're right, that are not our categories. Maybe it has something to do with the fact that jazz in its center is one flow of oral history. There is no, to me, there is no past and there is no future, because jazz always, one of the most impressive characterizations of jazz to me always was to deal with all of the actual influences and political things, crises, of course, this situation of the black community in the USA in the 40s, for example, was the beginning of a very new form of music, maybe the only genuine American music in the 20th century. And these reflections always mean that there is not as much as in other music genres, we will not have that over academization, let's say, in jazz. So it's more fluid.
But the question you had is very important, because a lot of when you say jazz to someone, this person has something in its mind. And this could be connected to the past, traditional jazz, we would say maybe. It could be connected to an art form now, or something this person has in his mind or her mind for the future. So, but when you do a festival, that's what I thought when I founded the festival. I had already the idea, because I'm interested in all these different time zones. And I already had the idea, when I present something that is maybe more of the future, then the traditional jazz audience would come and would say, Mr. Kern, this was not jazz what you're presenting tonight here. What is this? And that's why I have chosen the subtitle from the very beginning, Festival for Jazz and More. And it happened, by the way, in the first festival, that people came and said, sometimes a bit angry also,
like, this is not jazz.
Oh, jazz. And I said, no, this is more.
Yeah.
That was more to do tonight. And just,
Yeah, but it took me also when I started to listen to, I don't know, modern jazz, if we can say, I was like, okay, this is more like, I don't know if it's jazz or not, because you grow up listening to jazz, you listen to this classical jazz, so Armstrong, Nina Simone, I don't know, and then suddenly you had this modern jazz, and you're like, is this rock or jazz or what is this, and then you learn somehow, you need to learn that, you learn how to listen to music, or
that's absolutely in the sense that if you're curating or if you're connected to arts, you can only develop yourself if you listen or watch or whatsoever. If you can only become a wine expert by drinking wine, right? Yeah. When you never drink wine and only read about wine, you cannot become a wine expert, because you never know how it tastes, and you have to be connected to the content you're working with. I mean, you're a film director. If you would never watch films, then how can you become a film director? It's impossible.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's what I'm sorry. I just wanted to say, that's why it's so difficult with all the audience development programs. Some programs, they're just not made for the masses. It's impossible. If you present very highly improvised music, most people will run away, because for them it's chaos and it will make them aggressive. When you play to me, I'm super relaxed. When I had a very bad day, I listen to improvised music because it relaxes me. It's not, I'm not better or or not better. It's just I have a different habit in listening to music, and that's why we also must be we must be cautious when we say, but you have to bring different audience levels to your festival. Yes, but some art form you cannot expect that a lot of people come, but still it's important to have these art forms.
Now you're talking, like you're talking about like all this artistic, how to say, it's just like beautiful things, but if you wanna like on practice on like daily life, it's hard, So as I understood, you have to be pragmatic. I don't know if this is right or not, because of the fund of reaching people, reaching artists, but also you have all this idealistic ideas, So how can you do like I don't know how does this work, this idealism, this and being pragmatic on the same time. How do you balance?
I think one of the musicians I like very much, Frank Zappa, he used the claim conceptual continuity, and I think what is important that you stay with your concept, and then that you continuously work on that. And that's what we do for 24 years now. We could have changed some things, like we could have started to promote big pop artists, for example. So then we would have got bigger halls, and we would have earned money with it and everything. But I think if you have a conceptual continuity, and you just said it, and you mentioned the wonderful example of the Kurdish musician, if you develop your listening experience by nothing else than listening, not talking about listening. So we present this conception, this aesthetic conception for 23 years now. So the audience knows what we're doing. And what the audience experience very often when they come to our concerts, they have not heard about this band or this musician. Because like even experts in our region, they know maybe a third or a fourth of the program. But that's my idea, to bring stuff here that no one knows. Also could be something that you know.
But you know what I mean? At the end, you need to pay your rent. Nah? You need to buy your kids some clothes. And following your dream or following your idea doesn't always bring you the money, right?
Let me tell you one thing. Let me tell you one thing. Most of the time of the festival, I wasn't an employee, but I was a music journalist, and for 22 years I was a very intense visitor of the festival. And
Volker only joined the team 2 years ago.
Yes, so I can tell you one thing. Rainer could tell that, of course. There is one aspect you have to see, and that's a certain kind of audience development. There are so many people. It's kind of, let's say, a very fantastic form of education and self-education of the audience, which happened here, because Rainer's way to bring a festival program, which is very diverse, consists of 70 single events. That's very much for an audience to be involved in every single of these events. So they learn to trust. And that's maybe one of the biggest resources of the festival. The audience learned to trust. And that's what makes, sorry to say that makes Rainer's work that special and absolute, to me, off records, absolutely unique.
But this took a long way, right?
Yeah, it's a long way. And what happened, I mean, this is coming back to your question. From the beginning, so I could start the festival because I got the private funding. So there was a call I applied, they invited me, the big software company SAP. They invited me, they talked with me, they decided they give me 30,000 D-Mark, Deutschmark at the time. So then I could start. And then while building up the festival, I got new partners, bigger sponsors, they get more money, the community, the cities start to fund the festival, then the state started to fund the festival, and so on. So it was building up. You're absolutely right. In the beginning, I didn't get money for that. I was a chemist at the time. I was still working as a chemist. So this was like I did it for free, and then I had to change. I had to decide whether I stay working as a chemist or with the culture. So I decided to stay with culture. And also chemistry is a huge culture, but I stayed with the music, and I got at the same time I'm also the one who is in connection with all the sponsors and all the supporters. And geographically, you are in Berlin now. But when you do something as an artist that people acknowledge in Berlin or outside Berlin, then we have to be 10 times, 100 times more here. Because the region is so far away, no one is, of course, Heidelberg is a big university and all, but it's a geographical thing. No one is really looking at this region here. So we had to do things in a different way, and but the things we invented didn't exist here. So they had an effect. Sponsors, private companies could see that because they would like to get employees to their companies. And then if the environment of the city is more interesting, then they can get better employees. So there's an ecosystem that worked, but I totally agree. So for some years, really, I got not paid for this job. And then for 3 other years, I did not take money, although because we had a problem with money, and I wanted to pay my employees. Then I took nothing, zero. Not less, but I took zero. It was, of course, a hard way, but at the end, after a while, we had a bunch of sponsors and public funding that we had a basis on which we could work on. And now in the pandemic year, 2020, I restructured the festival. I found new partners and new supporters. We could move to a better office now. And still it's hard work. But from the very beginning, I understood, maybe because I'm a chemist, that if you want to do something fun or valuable, there's also a part that is hard. And you're right. And being pragmatic also means sometimes, of course, that we also have concerts where 1,000 people are coming. Of course, it's a mixture. But the trust thing, I guess, it's important. What Volker said, that after a while, not in the beginning, but now, we can present totally unknown artists and it will be sold out. Like when we presented Mazoumzadeh and Leila for the first time, no one knew them here, of course, because they're not very famous in Germany. But it was sold out. 1,000 people came without knowing them. Of course, the people from the Arabic community, of course, they knew them. But we also sold like 500 tickets and that's because it was the opening show of the festival, so people know the opening show is always a super highlight. And of course, we did articles and we were interviews and all that, so we promoted it, of course. And to see that 1,000 people, and people were, like you can imagine, the band, so it was a big party at the end. And as it was the opening show, that was the nice thing. We had a lot of politicians there, and the sponsors were there. And they were all in the first 2 rows, but they were also dancing at the end. Everyone was dancing, because it's much later, right? So what I'm saying is that I'm not afraid of being pragmatic. I think that's life, right? It's not only vanilla ice cream. It's also sometimes it's also salt. And although I prefer salt, that's vanilla ice cream, by the way. And now what I'm saying is, it's always black and white, It's not only black or not only white. And I'm not afraid of the hard work. We're not afraid of being pragmatic. But yes, you're right. And sometimes, of course, we had a lot of crises during the 24 years, financially, emotionally. Of course, it's that's why what you explained in the beginning, what will happen with these little films that they go to the parliament and show the value of art, which is still not very embedded in the thinking of politicians, to be very clear.
They don't care actually. They somehow like in a different reality.
But now everyone is asking the art to help to get out of the crisis, yes. But we're all dead because we didn't care about it. Yeah, so again, being pragmatic, I'm not afraid of that.
Yeah, that's like amazing actually what you're saying. I wish it exists way more. This podcast is supported by Fonds Soziokultur. The music is composed by Benjamin Berry. See you in the next episode.